As human animals, we grow and learn in groups. We learn from each other. We learn by watching each other learn. On this episode, we have Mary and Anna Bloom, two sisters, incredible leaders at Snap and Airbnb. Today, we're going to talk to them about the importance of group work in their development as leaders and how their lives as sisters early on helped to shape them as the leaders they are today. Leaders who often lead by convening. We're also going to hear their sage advice on how to find, create, and facilitate groups and communities. This is a really exciting episode for me. As you may know, groups are one of my biggest passions. Actually, my group program, which is called Forward Fearless, is launching very soon. It's a leadership development group coaching program that happens online. So no matter where you are in the world, you can participate. It's a really rich program. It's an incredible steal of a deal value. I really encourage you to come and register by December 15th. That's when the window closes. So please go to caneel.com to sign up. You are allowed to be a human being who needs other human beings. You are allowed to grow in a way that is not alone. You are allowed to have partnership. You are allowed to have support. You are allowed to seek out whatever kind of support you need. Now, let's join the conversation. Aloud. When you were born, you were whole, perfect. Then somewhere along the way, you learned that parts of you were not allowed here, and you began to chip away at yourself. What are the pieces of you that you've put into the basement? The parts of you that we cannot see anymore or that you cannot even remember? What are the ways that you, without even knowing it, are eroding your own aliveness, your creativity, and your well-being? And how can you reclaim the wholeness that is your birthright? I'm Dr. Caneel Joyce, and I'm here to join you in exploring these questions and many more you didn't even know you were allowed to ask. You are allowed to grow. You're allowed to dream. You are allowed to be exactly who you are and to become the next version of who you want to be. Start your journey of exploration with me right now on Aloud. Aloud. You are allowed to be whole. Before we begin the episode, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Anthony R. Disney, who left an awesome review that really helps me understand that this content is landing and really helping people to change their self-awareness and change their lives. I'm going to share with you what he wrote. And partly, to thank him and also to encourage you to give me feedback and share what you're learning, how you're growing, what questions you have, what ideas you have, what topics you'd like me to cover. So Anthony R. Disney talks about triggering. He said, I never knew what triggering was, and I loved getting to know more. So he's referring to the episode number 2 that we had with Luke Entrup. Go back and check it out if you haven't. Then he says, now I'm going through my days, figuring out what my shadows are and owning them. Wow. Thank you for your vulnerability and thank you for the helpful information. Anthony R. Disney, you are a superstar. It is so courageous and profound for you to begin owning your shadows and using triggering as an opportunity for your own waking up and growth. So I'm so excited for you to have access to this new way of looking at life. And please keep the feedback coming. Let us know on your journey. What are you learning about your shadows? So let's get straight into the conversation. So often we want to change, and yet we find ourselves stuck in one place. Everything we're trying isn't working. In episode 1, we covered a magical secret called the change formula. The change formula says that we only change when we are willing to change. Since we typically resist change, it also gives us instructions about how to create that willingness. The formula goes something like this: vision times discomfort plus support equals willingness to change. I really encourage you to go back to episode 1 and check that out if you haven't heard it yet. At caneel.com/podcast, you can find that one there. And there's also a worksheet around it. But I want to dive into how being in a group can help you boost your vision, get really clear on what you want. It can help you get uncomfortable with the way things currently are so that you're ready to be challenged by changing. And it can also give you the support that you need, that's that extra additive boost that can really get you over the hump. In episode 3, when we discussed gratitude, and I was chatting with Heather, it was our Thanksgiving episode, we touched on the importance of the support aspect of that formula in particular. Support from other humans, support through being in connection and being committed to a group where the group is also committed to you and to your change and well-being. Finding support in groups is a hugely beneficial practice as you're moving forward on this journey of change and self-discovery. It's been absolutely essential for me and for almost every leader that I know. There are tons of questions about support that came in after this episode came out and how to find that type of support. Where is it available? So if you haven't listened to episode 3, I also encourage you to go back to that one at caneel.com/podcast. Now, like-minded people who share fundamentally some belief or aspect of your journey are the ones that you want to seek out. Those who are committed to being in gratitude, committed to curiosity, committed to self-improvement, committed to making a positive impact. Our 2 guests, Mary and Anna Bloom, happen to be sisters. They're also 2 of my favorite clients. And actually, Mary is one of my oldest clients. Not in years, but in tenure. So I'm really excited that they're on the show. These are women that both really inspire me. And I always feel that I'm a better coach when they're around. So we're in for a treat. Their stories about how they've created and grown in groups and communities, I believe will inspire you too. So let's dive in. Aloud. Mary and Anna, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
We're really excited to be here. Thanks, Caneel.
For those of you on the show, I know that we do record these episodes ahead of time, but I think it's a fun little piece of context for you to know that this is Sunday morning, the Sunday morning after Thanksgiving when we're recording this episode. And this is the first truly cold day that I can remember in the last year in Southern California.
Yes.
It's freezing today.
Yes.
Luckily, my heater started working again, so that's a bonus. And I wanted to tell you ladies this on the air. Yesterday, we got a dog.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's so
thank you.
exciting. Oh my gosh. You were talking about this.
Yes, it was a debate in our house. We finally found the right one.
Wasn't Arrow allergic or
Yes.
did we find one hypoallergenic?
No,
I remember the
because Roy doesn't like any of the hypoallergenic dogs.
Okay.
Sorry, hypoallergenic dog owners. I love them. But no, we found a puppy at a shelter, and Roy in particular really fell in love with this puppy. He's so cute. He's a shepherd mix, so he didn't fit that criteria. But Arrow hung out with him for maybe half an hour, and we rubbed her face with his fur and everything, and she never had any symptoms. So maybe magically shepherds are not.
It's a magic dog.
Yeah, maybe magic, just like a magic girl she is. So yeah, that's really fun. That was last night.
Oh my goodness.
I'd love you to, as sisters, as friends, as people who have seen each other grow over the course of your entire lives, I would love you to introduce each other to our audience.
I'll start. This is my sister, Anna Bloom. She is a radical, badass, amazing artist, feminist, content strategist, creator, leader. She is so cool, is the leading content strategy for Airbnb, for Plus. Airbnb Plus, but probably secretly the whole organization.
No.
And she is just been like a huge role model and support for me. Someone I've looked up to entering the tech world and having a voice throughout my whole life, and just is very impactful both in sort of corporate and tech world, as well as super socially active and politically engaged.
Let it in.
Okay.
And so embarrassed right now.
Right. Okay, this is my sister, Mary. So I know her as a funny and warm person, badass mom of a little guy named Cy, who is just owning it in, what is it called? Silicon Beach? Is that what we call it?
And that's how we brand it.
Okay, that's how we brand it. She's at Snapchat. She is probably the best product manager there, I'm told. And she leads travel and commerce for the company. Outside of that, has been on the board of Women Wireless. Outside of that, runs marathons in the mountains.
Wow.
And I love her very, very much.
Right back at you, sis.
That's great. It's great to have you both here. I'd love you to just share a little bit about what you've been up to.
Well, so what I do for a living is I'm the head of content for Airbnb Plus, which is a selection of homes verified for quality and design.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, I paint and I'm very politically active.
How's your book going? So Anna has a beautiful book, and there's a website that goes with it, 45VS, 45 versus 45. It's a watercolor book about it's 45 portraits of people standing up to Donald Trump and his administration. Yes, and it's amazing. I do have a copy, which I've been reading a lot and looking at. It's very inspiring. And Mary, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm still at Snap. I'm a product manager there. I am leading commerce and travel solutions. I'm also still being a mom.
That's still going, huh?
Still going.
Still got that gig.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Mary, I believe you and I first started working together. I was in a coach training. I needed somebody that I had never coached before. And so I coached you. I was actually parked in my car.
Were you?
Because I probably was pulled over. I think I was pumping at the time still because
Awesome.
I still had, Arrow was a baby. So I pulled over to pump on the way home from the training, and then we had our call, and then I continued. You know how that is.
Yes. But would have never known you felt like so present throughout that.
That was a long time ago. That was 4 years ago. And then, amazingly, we were able to stay in each other's lives. And I got to coach you for a while. You invited me to some organizations that you were part of. And then last year, you joined our leadership development program, our year-long forum program. And then you introduced me to your sister. So you've been a big piece of my career, actually, in many ways. And I'm really grateful for you. And I love working with you. I'd love you to just share, as background, kind of what a little bit of that journey was like. And in particular, I'm really interested because this is the episode where we talk about community and groups, is like the role of any of this in shaping your community.
Yeah. Wow. It's so amazing to hear how much I've been a part of your journey, because I feel likewise like you've been at every step of sort of my journey, which have been hugely important. I think, to start, it's interesting because Roy sort of suggested, hey, my wife is starting coaching and looking for some hours. I think you guys would get along and be a great candidate. And Caneel, as you know, I love volunteering and taking risks. And I was like, cool, sounds great. Love to meet other badass females too. And I think also to start, it was in a way what I was trying to work with you on was sort of navigating a group and navigating a group at Scopely, of being at the executive table and relating and being present and understanding how to communicate at that level, and working through some things that were around how to be present, how to be open, how to go with leadership. And one of the things that really, there were so many things that stuck with me at that level, but one of the things that I think I take with me, and I think a lot about also in groups, is how important the body is in those sorts of meetings. And
we worked on that with you, didn't we?
Yeah. And I'm still working on it. You can see my sort of shoulders right now leaning in, but this idea of, coming and sort of being present and open, and with that, changing your body shape and how much the body is connected to the mind, to the emotions. Everything sort of works together, which makes so much sense, but is not something you often think about.
We talk about body language, but the thing is not just about how others perceive you. It really gives you access to different way of being. If you can hold yourself open and hold yourself tall, you are more open.
That's right.
And you are more elevated and you're more aligned. Yeah.
That's right. And it's not this idea, which I think is so core too. It's not this idea of sort of faking your body language or sort of being in an artificial space, but it's really being connected to, okay, when you feel yourself sort of going below the line or digging in your heels or not being open, what is your body doing? And oftentimes it is sort of hunched over, kind of looking down, and then just try this readjustment and see sort of all of a sudden, even just now doing that, I can feel the oxygen sort of rising to my brain and being more open and sort of in a zone of like creativity and presence. So anyways, that was kind of the first work that we did that's really stuck with me, and it was really powerful. And we started coaching one-on-one after that.
Yeah, I think it was one of the themes was about being seen and being heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
you being willing.
Yes.
To be seen and heard.
Yes, that's
Instead
right.
of they need to see and hear me.
Right.
I need to be willing to be seen and heard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That switch of the perception versus what do I need, not about what do they need. And I think that's also sort of interesting when you think about group work too, right? Is what's the I and what's the they in that. But yeah, so we then went down a journey of individual coaching and, working with you through that. And then what was hugely helpful too was when this opportunity at Snap came up as well, which I think I was really struggling because Scopely is such an amazing place, what to do and how to transition into this role. And it was also kind of moving from being at more of a startup to a larger company. And that was really important. And it sort of was also on the heels of getting married and all of these different identity changes along the way, personal and professional, that it's been hugely important to have you as a coach to navigate all of those different life milestones.
Very memorable. I remember planning out kind of how do you want to show up that first week?
Yes.
Remember this?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. So well. Oh, and it was that really set the tone for like my journey, it feels, which was, okay, this opportunity to show up with kind of this idea of an openness, of a curiosity. And
instead of, how were you feeling? What was the concern?
Oh my gosh, imposter syndrome.
Totally.
Hugely. I was like, how could this amazing company in LA at this time want to hire me for such a critical role? I remember meeting with you for coffee. I was like whispering, they're going to find out.
They're going to find out.
They're going to know.
I don't know what I'm doing.
And you sort of said, well, lean into that. And I think one of the things we started doing was even asking questions leading up to that, asking questions of my team and taking those risks of things to be like, what don't you know? And asking that. And instead of it feeling like this dirty thing, it was
like hunt for things you don't know.
It was really revealing that. And
because the thing with imposter syndrome, because I've certainly had it before, is when you hide that you're scared that you don't know, you're much less likely to ask questions. And then you're much less likely to find out the things that you need to know. And then you truly are being an imposter.
That's right.
And then it's 2 months into a new job and it's too late to begin to be the question asker because here you're accountable for work being done. So the idea was like, build your personal brand around, I'm going to be the most curious one in the room, like at every single meeting, most questions.
And it made the job so fun. And it really connected me to like a lot of people there and a team. And I think also surprising, like a lot of times they'd say, oh, I don't know. They didn't know either, or we would figure it out together. And it really changed, sort of set the course for this environment where I now, I think, created this space where one, others feel comfortable to ask questions.
Yes.
And two, there's sort of this respect and genuineness that I bring that I hope others bring to the table when they work with me. And I think it allowed us to move really fast because there was this trust with all of us that we can ask and we know, and no one's sort of questioning, should you be in the room or are you doing this? Or it felt very much more open to sort of good group work to get work done.
It's a much more inclusive way to lead, isn't it? It's a very, I think your leadership style is very inviting of others to be curious and to be vulnerable and open, because it's not about, how much you know. It's about your willingness to learn.
Yeah.
And I really see you doing that.
I hope so. I really try that. I mean, and then the other work I think that we've been doing a lot, which sort of dovetails into that, is this kind of enters into the group and the forum that you created around Conscious Leader Group, but is also around willingness to learn on one side and then kind of your ego or super ego on the other. That's kind of what I would say is like that work that I'm really working on now, and something that I found hugely beneficial to work through in a group setting and through the Conscious Leader Group that you created in particular. I think there's something there. I was thinking a little bit about this. I think it feels like when you have a group of individuals that everyone sort of trusts and admires and respects, it's such a great forum to get feedback through. And so when you're sort of jumping into your head or your ego, that group can quietly and in a respectful way call you out on, hey, let's dig and find the truth. I don't think, is that right? That doesn't feel, that doesn't feel as genuine. And when you hear that, again, it was something that you shared, which I think is right, is feedback by a few people. That's a good signal to sort of ingest. Feedback by one person might be a little more nebulous, might not be as true of, oh, is that about you? Is that about that person? But if you hear it a few times, there might be some wisdom there.
There might be something there for you.
And so that's where I think in particular that group work has been hugely helpful.
Yeah, it's been really amazing to see you grow there. Anna, did you notice any evolution in her that as this is all happening? Just like super briefly, I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I know Mary in a personal way. I've never seen her operate at work. And in my mind, it's almost legendary because I hear it from coworkers I meet, or Sean, who actually worked, or her husband who worked at Snap too. Like that just, you should see Mary at work. And I'm like, oh. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would say that I think it's a confidence thing. I think that just seeing her, become her own person, or keep on becoming her own person and being cool with that is what I've seen. Potentially just a steadiness in who she is and what she's about and what she's up to.
I'd love to hear a little bit about how the two of you grew up as sisters and how that shaped you both as leaders and how you supported each other along the way.
So there's a 4.5-year age gap. And that means when, Mary is teething, I am, learning the ABCs. When Mary is learning to read, I'm starting to get interested in boys. And so it's a lot of like, there was a gap for a long time, and I felt a real responsibility for helping her understand what was ahead of her and helping her. I felt like I was her the responsibility of a role model.
So you knew, I'm just piecing this together now,
time,
like knowing what I know of your life story.
Yeah.
That from age 4.5, you were a leader of women. You knew what it felt like to have women follow you.
Oh, yes.
Dang, girl.
Or women following you, but then it's like, that's good. I mean, you knew if you said something, she was going to repeat it. If you did something stupid, she was going to do something stupid too. I mean, like you're just watching it right in front of your eyes, like the effect you could have on another person.
Wow.
I think that was something that, you feel as an older sister is the way that I behave is influential. So watch out, because you could, watch out. But then also I think, potentially if you do good, if you model goodness, then you could multiply your impacts essentially in the business terms that we use these days, by virtue of just, being a good person in the world and somebody else watching you and following in your footsteps. You can do a lot with that. And that's important.
This philosophy that you're explaining, I am connecting it to all the work that you've done in creating community. And you've done this many times. Would you share a few stories around that?
It hadn't occurred to me how I just seek out groups.
Yes.
That is important. And that I will do that. And I don't even think about it. I do it. I form them without knowing.
You create them often.
I sometimes create them.
It seems like it's one of your artistic mediums, actually, is creating these groups.
Well, there's sort of this, I didn't create any groups in college, but afterwards when I became a professional, groups became really important, especially in tech, where things are, you're trying things that are untested, or you're creating whole new roles. So some groups I helped to organize included the Bay Area Content Strategy Meetup group. And outside of that, I also ended up in 2016 organizing alumni for my college around trying to change the way that the school addressed and managed and prevented sexual assault on campus. That's one of the heavier groups that I helped to form. That was very personal and important to me.
Yes. So
when I was 18, I was assaulted. I had sexually assaulted in my room, and it was it was the worst thing that happened to me. And immediately following it, I mean, I was brand new to the school, so no best friends, no long-lasting friends, not a lot of community.
You were a freshman.
I was a freshman in college.
Wow, 18 years old.
18 years old. Then from then on out, I mean, really, college ended up being a pretty lonely experience for me. And I was very guarded about what had happened to me. There were a lot of cues that it was not safe to talk about what had happened. It was safer to be silent.
Yeah.
And there was
which is a massive reversal for you in your identity and how important voice was for you.
Oh God, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very heavy, and I didn't want it to be heavy. I mean, I rejected. I mean, I just sort of said, I just want to erase it, and I don't want this to be my college experience. That you cannot, that this doesn't work. So flash forward to 2016. So I was assaulted in 2000. So 16 years later, I see a blog post posted by this boy that is all about his sister being assaulted on the same college campus, which is Kenyon College in Ohio. And I said, this is crazy. It's still happening. Like this is, and the college mishandled it. It just was not.
Did they have a particular issue with this?
I think it's the issue that all colleges have, which is how do you manage something where it sort of happens in private between two people?
Yeah.
It's hard to get evidence. It's not like the first thing you want to do when you get assaulted is like, I want to go get tested. You just want to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. And also the sort of the fact that like, you don't want that to color your college experience. So you don't want to talk about it. So a lot of women don't talk about it, but one out of every 3-4 women is assaulted in college in the States. And so it's a huge issue for college campuses. Still. It was right before the Me Too movement, but it was all bubbling up. And I just said, I had a sense that maybe now's the time to get people together and let's do something. So I just raised my hand and I kind of posted on Facebook. I said, does anybody want to deal with this in my network, and let's get together. And so it ended up organizing 2,000 alumni. We created a fund.
Wow.
And really stood up to, and then worked also with the school, with the president of Kenyon College, Sean Decatur, to start to be more frank and open about the issues at the school. And also the president of the college, Sean Decatur, decided to dedicate a whole alumni issue to what we called it Title IX. So Title IX, there are a lot of protections under Title IX. So the group was called Kenyon Alumni for Title IX. And then the whole issue was dedicated to Title IX. And so I wrote an essay. And so, so that's another group. But I did, by virtue of having been a part of a lot of groups, I did know how to facilitate those groups. I could see that I had built a skill over time to manage conversations, which got pretty heated in that private group.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was cool. It felt very powerful to come together. It was really healing. It was hugely, I cannot say this enough, hugely healing to be seen and heard on that topic. After many years of feeling like, oh man, I don't think it's okay to talk about this.
Yeah.
And then to see women who were 10 years older than me still struggling and not having a place to put this dark secret, or nobody to listen. It's like there wasn't, I don't think this is the case now because of Me Too, but there was a feeling that what happened 20 years ago, it's over. Get over it.
Right.
And so I think that was really important. I mean, it's still going, but I think that there's sort of, the heat is off of the school a little bit. But that was another group that I helped.
But I think one thing that was so cool about what you did too, worth mentioning, is that it wasn't like this, it didn't feel like, okay, we are victims, we're going against the school. It was, how do we work with this school? Because I think part of it was also this shaming of don't talk, this is an institution, this is a higher educational institution, Kenyon College.
You're going to ruin it.
You're going to ruin it. And it's so sacred. Yeah. You as a victim. right? Which is crazy. But I think you just navigated that so beautifully of like, no, I'm not here to ruin this college, but I think actually we can all make it better by giving a voice and a light and a forum, and let's fix it. Let's not, let's bring it to the surface. Everybody talk about it and let's make it better, which I think was, it was truly like a creation and an up leveling, which was so cool to see.
Yeah.
That's so incredibly courageous.
Thanks.
And to work with the administration who had a lot of fear around this, understandably, treating it in a totally different way.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you learn by giving something a try and working with people is that you don't know how they're going to respond to your requests. I mean, so it was a big ask. Can I talk to the president of the school? Can we, do something about this? But then at the other end of the line, we had a president that was very open to this. I think that there are walls created, and you teach about this a lot, Caneel, but like sort of the victim villain personas we create can prevent us from breaking through. And I think that you can't break through if you don't give somebody a chance. And I think, again, back to groups, tying it back to groups, I think if you have a supportive clan, if you have people who are all trying out things, you build the confidence to give things a try.
Right. Walking into that president's office must have felt really different. Had you done this alone without the group behind you, it would have felt pretty different.
Yeah. There were a couple other people. So we had a little steering committee. And by the way, mostly men, which was cool. Men I had known, but didn't know they cared, were really supportive of like this group. They had seen it too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like you don't know until you open up who's on your side.
Oh,
and there's so many. Yeah. Oh God, I'm gonna cry. But there's so many men who were boys at the time who saw this happening, and they were unhappy with it too, but felt silence too. And what were they going to do? So I think that was again important. But I think it could go the other way. That's the other thing I want to say is like that there's a reason why you feel afraid to share things like this or afraid to open up. Yeah. Is because it can go the other way.
Well, it's the fact versus story, right? We can believe that something is going to happen, but it's a story until we've tested it. And it's, trust is built by taking risks. Like there is no such thing as you can't build trust without doing something that feels like you don't trust it. You have to step into something. Fear will be with you. I love just the instinct that you have around, and now it's time to gather them again. Just this knowing, it seems like it's a big piece of your self-care.
No, I remember making that initial Facebook post. This is crazy. This is still happening. Anybody want to join me? And thinking, yeah, maybe it's just going to be 2 or 3 people.
Right.
Even then, let's see what happens.
Well, I hear a lot of fear when, it actually came up when I was talking to people about I'm putting together this group, conscious leaders, and when we're going to gather, and people saying, "What am I really going to? Am I going to share things that are personal with them?" Like, oh yeah, you're gonna. It's gonna get very personal, and like, but is that? What if they're a competitor of mine? What if they're a board member? What if what if they're an investor? What if they're an employee? What if they're a coworker? And you were actually in our group with a coworker.
I brought on a coworker.
Yeah. And people are so scared about this thing of, if I share, will people be there for me, or will they turn against me? And having a trusted facilitator is really, really important, because you're right, to your point, things can happen. But I think that there are a lot of lonely people out there who, or maybe even don't recognize that they don't have this, that they don't have safe places to go. It kind of breaks my heart when I have a new client and they say, "You're the only person I can tell this to." It's something that we really overlook. And I feel in particular men who haven't been socialized this way, or maybe didn't need to be socialized this way, or had it built in because everything was the old boys network. But there's this feeling of like, I have to keep it all to myself. And it's just so freeing to let it go, like to share. It's so freeing.
I don't think I was not fully healed
Mm-hmm.
or close to healing even 16 years later
Mm-hmm.
until I brought this group together. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Mm-hmm. I believe it.
something was left my body
Mm-hmm.
by virtue of creating that group. It was like that
Wow.
it was like, you know, a weight lifted off my chest, like all of the things.
Well, sunlight is the ultimate disinfectant.
It is.
Right. Shame only can survive in darkness.
Mm.
And so it is scary and super powerful to reveal what we're ashamed of. And then it takes the power away from shame and you get to reclaim it for yourself. Because it occupies so much of your brain space, even subconsciously. It becomes your whole pattern of like, how do I avoid feeling that feeling? You begin to organize your life around, how do I not feel shame? Or how can I make sure that no one sees me? Because shame convinces you that you shouldn't be seen, that it will be bad in some way, or you're bad. Really, it's about your bad. Yeah. It's a really powerful move that you did there of like using that deconstructive challenger in your life and saying like, I can be a leader through this.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's such a thing, and Brene Brown, one of my heroes, she talks about, you have to be careful about who you let into. I mean, I think I knew that that group that we created had to be private. And there had to be ground rules. And I vetted every single person I welcomed into it.
Good.
I asked them questions. And similar to your conscious leadership group, you're creating a group and a container for that sharing.
Right.
And I think that is very important. I do think there's a reason why we're afraid to share certain things. It's real. And that you need to figure out how to create the container before you share in some capacity.
It's a big piece of trusting yourself, right? It's trusting the intelligence of your fear. Like, and then asking, what do I want? What would help me feel safe? And giving yourself permission to say, I will create the rules for this.
Yeah.
I create the rules of engagement here. I'm going to opt in where I feel comfortable opting in. Yeah. Curation is a big piece of the container building, but you know, what these groups have in common is there were boundaries around them. There were specific individuals who were in, specific ones who weren't. It meant something. And I think that those are really important ingredients in creating safety.
One of the things, like as Anna and I were talking about coming down to podcast and sort of groups that were important. And I thought a lot about this past year, and it feels really in particular this past year that groups were super important and community was super important to me. Becoming a mom
which was almost exactly a year ago.
Which was also almost exactly when I joined the Conscious Leader group.
Right.
Too. I remember you
were still pregnant.
I was still pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like, and it was going to start and I had like a few weeks to go. And Caneel, you offered me the invitation to join the group. And my first reaction was, I can't.
I can't.
Which I can't, you know, I'm pregnant. Which of course you can't.
I'm not allowed to be in a leadership group because I'm pregnant.
Yeah, which is just wild, right? And I think one of the cool things, you know, we talked about it, and Caneel, you mentioned to me, you shared some of the stories about your birth and becoming a mom, and basically saying, "Gosh, you know, I really wish I had something like this." It was
so you decided. To listen to me, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Well, I thought it was really interesting. And actually my husband at the time was like, oh, classic Mary, you're having a baby, you're working still and you want to join this group, like more things to do.
I can do it. Yeah.
And I was like, no, but I think this will actually be, you know, really, really helpful for me to navigating this. I think it was just hugely important to sort of have this group really as a tool to sort of work through all of those identity shifts. And I think there's something to being in LA. Anna's close by in San Francisco, but not there. Our parents are back in Chicago too. So having that center of the Conscious Leadership group and that touchstone throughout to sort of share my experiences. And I think one of the things that groups do too is this layering and this or delayering and unpacking of like what's real.
Right. So I'd love to share some ideas. Let's just brainstorm because I know that our audience wants to find groups like the two of you have created and led and been supported by. Let's brainstorm and figure out if we wanted to advise people, how do you find a group that can support you? What should you be looking for? Where could you find it? What are some questions you could ask? How might you put them together?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the ideas that Caneel and Anna, I forget who brought it up, around creating a container is important. I think a lot of those elements of like creating the space and finding the people and then getting really clear about your commitments to that group is just hugely important for whatever you want to create, whatever kind of space or community you want to create.
Yeah. So container building, I think that some of the important elements of that are, who are the people that it's for? Who's supposed to be in this group? What's the purpose of it? What's the intended? I think there's always an intended change, right? Even if it's just we go from being alone to being supported, or we go from being quiet to being heard, or we evolve as leaders in some certain way. And I think that that's a really big ingredient. Another one is the rules of engagement. So how are we going to behave when we're in this group? You can create agreements with each other, and then how do we renegotiate the agreements if we're not going to keep them? Because it's about the integrity of the situation, right? So what do you do when somebody breaks one of these agreements? How do you handle that as a group? So looking for these very specific containers, I feel, is really transformative.
The other thing I'd say just also is making it clear, I think, too, like how to create this group that feels inclusive versus us versus them, I think is important in order to create sort of, especially if you're looking for like sort of a sense of community and grounding and nourishment, thinking having that sort of positive, open-minded intent is important. I think, Anna and I talked about it too. Like, I think we've had groups or been in groups or that were a little bit us versus them, which I don't think is necessarily adding to the conversation or acts of service or going to be as nourishing as kind of this more a non sort of us versus them kind of mentality.
We'll focus more on what can I control. We can control what's happening here. That's in
right.
This group. We can't control the outside world. We can influence,
right?
We can influence, but we can't control.
What I would say is pay attention to how you feel in the group. So if it doesn't feel right, leave.
Yeah. Yes.
Leave. I mean, I think about like friend groups I've become a part of, just doesn't feel right and just brings you down.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay.
Yeah. You don't have to stay. You're allowed to leave.
So you're allowed to leave.
Yeah.
Allowed to
That's
leave.
so huge. You can't have a yes without a no. If you can't say no, you can't. There's no genuine yes. So the whole body yes.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I want to come back to what you said about creating rules. So if you create a group, if you're a facilitator of the group, what happens when somebody crosses a boundary? I think if I had to do it over again, especially this group around alumni and sexual assault, I think I would have talked more openly with some of the co-facilitators about what we're going to do. But also, I want to say that it's really hard to deal with the quote-unquote bad apple in a group situation. You want to take that person, in my experience, aside and talk to them about what happened. And that's something that I learned. Like, it's just, you've got to figure out how to do it in private versus doing it with a group present. Although maybe you have strategies around that. I've found that it's very important to do that one-on-one.
I think it just depends on what the container's like, the quality of like this.
Yeah.
I think it's very rare to find a group where you can do it publicly.
Yeah.
Can be done.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
It takes somebody skilled in a different way than I. I think in terms of finding a group, I mean, Meetup is actually still kicking.
Nice.
Meetup, I think, is still a thing.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that the other thing I would say would be the best thing about Facebook is groups.
Huh.
In my opinion. So if you've quit Facebook, it's okay. But I think that Facebook groups is a great, if you find a private group, if you find groups there are some really great ones.
You know what the best one is?
Which one?
The Allowed Podcast Facebook group.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best one.
I like that group.
Yeah. And what I like about Facebook groups, so if you're creating a group, they've created really robust tools for managing groups in a way that I think other online forums haven't, around privacy, around vetting group members. I think
Mhm.
that's a great place. And this is not to do with the fact that I've worked there, but it's like I do think that it's a great tool and a great place to discover groups. I recommend also joining groups at work. I
Mhm.
think those are really great forums. I think that you already have a kind of a common thread if you work at the same company, and you sort of have a connect really easily in that space.
I think that's a great point, actually, and I think it's something also, Caneel, that you brought up earlier, which is this idea of like, oh, my coworker can't see me in this light. You know,
Yeah.
my coworker needs to see me in my business light, or the persona I've really curated. But I actually think I agree with you, Anna, because like I think joining in groups, either facilitated within work or outside of it, can be hugely powerful and amazing to connect with people and your coworkers on that other level, both for yourself and to see that other coworker. There's a whole nother layer of like trust and respect that happens. That's like so awesome to see.
When they know you more.
They know you more. And I think, it's something else too. I think with creating groups, sometimes, particularly with the groups you create, maybe I'd create too, there's a bit of a risk. There's a bit of a putting yourself out there. There's a bit of a, oh, you too? I'm just going to try. Do you feel this way too? And connecting on that, and then connecting on a few other levels sort of creates this container. And again, it sort of goes back to being a place to share and to be seen. So, but I think there's that risk-taking element potentially of trying to connect on another level that can be really fulfilling when you see that others are on your same page, have similar ideas.
It builds intimacy when you take a risk, put yourself out there, and then someone catches you. Yeah, but you have to take the risk first to get there.
And for the people who are facilitating, know that sometimes it does feel lonely, and you there's often like there's excitement when you're first forming the group, and then that sort of can trail off. And so keeping some structure, a regular cadence is good.
And inviting support for yourself and not being the only facilitator. In terms of keeping groups going, if you have facilitation skills, which are, by the way, very, very learnable, and also it's a craft. You can there's a massive range in how good of a facilitator you can be, how effective you can be as a facilitator. I can actually point you guys to some resources in the show notes at caneel.com/podcast for some places I think are excellent for picking up facilitation skills. One of the new ones that I'm experimenting with lately is from Authentic Relating. And it's an amazing set of practices. There's a woman named Sarah Ness, Ness, who has a digital book that you can buy. You donate nothing or whatever you want to. And she has some, like over 100 games that are just ways of getting conversations going in a very authentic, open way. And so it gives you some structure, and it's playful. And having a couple of those tools in your toolkit are so important. But as a facilitator, like one of the best things you can do to help the group keep going is to teach other people facilitation skills. Because if everybody in the room can actually act and think like a facilitator, which is, it's a high bar to set, the conversation can be just held in such a beautiful way. I think it's such an important, as a leader, it's increasingly important skill to have, because most people are just so thirsty for it. They're so thirsty for it. I did a dinner in LA, which you're gonna help me host the next one, Anna, in San Francisco, which is coming up pretty soon. And when I sent out the invitation for the dinner, I thought to myself, same thing as you thought, Anna, when you started your group for Kenyon College. Maybe 3 people will show up. Even if it's 3, it's okay. I'll we can have a good conversation with 3 people. And 27 people showed up. And I was amazed. Yeah, people want this. They want to gather. It's very doable. So the group that you were part of, Mary, that met in person, I also have a new group coaching program starting up, and it's online.
Cool.
And what I'm really excited about is I've hosted, I've facilitated a lot of these online coaching programs, and they've always had a lifespan. They were 6-month long programs typically. Extremely powerful. And you'd be surprised the amount of depth that you can get to in an online format like that, where I had people calling in from all over the world into one small group. But it's all about the facilitation skills of helping people to find that sense of safety and willingness to be seen and heard that is so conducive to growth. This one that is about to kick off is one where there's rolling enrollment. So every 3 months, new members get folded into the group. And so you can stay in it as long as you want to or not. But I've found that it's the same as this idea that we want to learn from those who've been there before, and we want to see what that path looks like and what the path of change is. And so some of the most exciting groups that I've been part of are ones where there are some beginners and there are some people who have been committed for years and both learn from each other. It's amazing. I mean, if you ever do another Conscious Leader program, you'll be amazed at what you used to look like back then. When you see the new person come, you're like, oh yeah, I remember being that reactive. Like I remember being triggered all the time. I remember like being really stuck. And it's an opportunity to teach others as well. So my son is in Montessori school, or was in Montessori school until recently. And there they combine, instead of just 1 year per class, like all the 7-year-olds together and so forth, it's 3 year chunks. So there's always older kids teaching younger kids learning from their peers. Ones who are in the middle, who are kind of like learning the ropes in terms of becoming a teacher. So they really teach each other. And it's so amazing. He got lucky enough to actually be in a blended classroom this year at a school that hardly ever does this. He's with 2nd and 3rd graders. And so he gets to see what it's like to, they're, obviously more experienced in math. And so he gets to look up to them and learn from them. And then if he were the older one, he'd get to see, oh, wow, look at me and look at how far I've come, which is big for a little boy,
I love that.
It's really cool. So I'm super excited about this group. And if you are in the audience and you are interested in finding out more about this group, I would get on it ASAP, because there's actually only 5 days left in the enrollment window. Enrollment closes on December 15th. So you can learn more about that at caneel.com. And like I said, get your registration in before December 15th. So it's been special to actually see you both in the same room for the first time.
Thank you for having us, Caneel. This is so fun.
And is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience if they'd like to get to know you or more about your work or connect with you?
So, okay, amongst my extracurriculars is that I'm very politically active, and I'm a watercolor artist. So there is a book. If you like Trump, this book is not for you. It's called 45 versus 45. It's portraits of 45 individuals who have stood up to Donald Trump in various ways, used their voice. So you can go to 45versus45.com. You can look at the portraits online. You could buy a book.
So it's the number 4?
Yeah.
45 vs 45?
Yes.
Okay.
And because Trump is our 45th president. So
it's gorgeous and very powerful. So thank you for making that book. One of the many amazing things that you've done in your spare time.
Do you want to? I was going to say the Ladies of the Resistance.
Well, okay. So I'm part of this grassroots group called the Ladies of the Resistance.
Woo!
Yes. So this is a group of moms and working professionals who get together to resist Donald Trump. You can follow us on Instagram, Ladies of the Resistance.
Ladies of the Resistance.
Yes. And what we're doing is we're actually gifting like book clubs that sign up a little package we call Resistance in a Box.
Oh, I love it.
So you can take direct action with your lady friends.
Are you a superhero?
Over wine.
Yes.
And it's we're basically taking Swing Left. If you know Swing Left, Swing Left is an organization that is working to flip all the houses in 2020 in 11 super states, which are critical for the Democrats. And these are, elections up and down the ballot that matter. So think state to federal, and basically what they're doing right now is getting people registered to vote. So they have lists of potential voters who aren't registered. And what you'd be doing with Resistance in a Box is you would be writing a little note from yourself about why voting is important to you and helping people know exactly how to get registered to vote. So we send out packets of 20 to 40 depending on what your group wants, and the idea is just to do what Ladies of the Resistance does, which is wine, discussion, and direct action. So that is the idea.
I will be forming a book club.
It doesn't need to be a book club. It could be anything, anybody. But in the back of our brains is like, book clubs. But
what a cool practical tool to create community and to
Yes.
create groups.
It's true.
Oh man, you're such a gatherer. I love it. Leading by convening.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, both of you. And thank you to our audience. Thank you to our listeners. If you were here today, you have done a good thing for yourself. And thank you for showing up and being open to learning and changing and growing. And I really invite each of you to go out and find or create the group of your dreams that is going to support you in your growth. It is truly an essential ingredient in finding the willingness to change, is having that support for yourself, having a place to get challenged and to get uncomfortable in a safe way, having a place to flesh out and build your vision for what is possible for you and what you want. If I had to pick, I would say that's the most powerful format for personal change. So aside from listening to this podcast. So yeah, please do go find one. We will put some resources into the show notes for you. We're going to link to Ladies of the Resistance, some of the other projects that both of these women have been a part of and the other groups. And then if you are interested in joining my Forward Fearless Leadership Development Program, which is the group program I described, please do not delay. This is the moment that you must go to Caneel.com to fill out your very brief registration form. Get yourself signed up because we are kicking off soon and it's going to be amazing. Please, if you are at all curious about this and afraid of taking the risk, you think you are not going to be able to complete the work, you think that this group might not be the group for you, that you're going to be scared to show up, that you won't have time. We have taken care of all of those details for you, because even if you can't show up on one particular day, that session will be recorded and you will still be engaged in a very active way, as active as you want it to be interactively in our online forum as well. And you will have the opportunity to be coached one-on-one by me as being part of this group. So it's a really great opportunity and it's super, super affordable, which is not like some of the other things that I do. So it's a great way. It's a great way to get connected with the others who care about the same things that you do. Caneel.com. Get there now. Closes December 15th. All right. Next week, we are talking about the drama triangle. And we're going to dive deep into what does it mean to be in villain mode? What does it mean to be in victim mode? And what does it mean to be in hero mode? How do these modes interrelate? You are going to be blown away as you begin to recognize these roles in yourself and in others around you. Ladies, has this been your experience?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Is it one of the most amazing things you've ever learned?
Absolutely.
You have a sense. I think we all have a sense. There's a sort of a bigger way to operate and a bigger way to come to the table, but you don't realize what's in your way to being that bigger person.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I think it's like that. It's just valuable common language and a common a great framework to leverage in your day to day, so that you come to the table in the best way possible. I think, and lead with compassion and consciously.
Oh yeah, I mean I love learning about the drama triangle. I think that it is hugely important because oftentimes you think drama triangle, oh no, I'm not in the drama, I'm above it all. I that's drama's over
I'm
here.
fine. I feel fine.
That's the victim over there.
I see others in the drama triangle, but I'm
They're
not there. But I'm somewhere else. So,
Which is a villain mode that she's in right now.
Yes.
Okay, we'll role playing that for us. Okay, it's going to be a really, really fun episode. I cannot wait to do it, and I cannot wait for you to be there. So we'll see you next week. Definitely get your application in before then, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Aloud.
For more information, check out my website, Caneel.com/podcast. CANEEL. Caneel.com/podcast, where you can find tons of resources, new episodes, show notes, transcripts, videos, all that good stuff to deepen your learning experience. Also, follow me on social. Send me your feedback there. Ask me your questions. I'm Caneel.is on Instagram and @Caneel on Twitter.
Aloud. You are allowed to be whole.